So, a development perspective of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League regarding why the game is online. I see that a lot of people are still in the mindset that possibly this game is, in a sense, going to change its overall framework. But there are a lot of hindrances to that. If you're going to go ahead and develop a video game that's going to run on these consoles, the PS5 and the Series X, you really have to sacrifice a lot of things. And I'll tell you why the structure of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League cannot support, or I think anyways, cannot support a good performance mode while giving you the same kind of game, hence having the developers kind of get the game to be running online. This is not to endorse that a game should run online. This is just pointing out what I think the development, difficulties could be and challenges. Now, you could run a game like this on, a PC at 60 FPS, or you just maybe leave PC players to kind of figure it out. That is PC culture. It's always been that way. If your PC hardware cannot take the game at 60, you play at 30. Gotham Knights is one of them, but the developers probably could not do that with their Gotham Knights game in regard to the consoles, so they basically locked it all, to 30 FPS on consoles. Perhaps the PS5 or the Series X could have been able to run it at maybe even the 45 FPS. Maybe one of them was falling short, Series S, and they decided that the 30 FPS was the way that they were going to go ahead and get it done. But in this video today, we're going to be talking about the structure of Suicide Squad, the AI, and why I think that there are many different things within the entirety of the game that prevent the game from running. And AI is what I'm going to use to show an example in this particular video. So I have an Unreal Engine project here that I built a while ago. It is a project that, I started working on in trying to learn, say, the gameplay ability system, nothing crazy. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of showcase a few things that you can probably see. Now, I have my screen split into 4, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of do something. So this particular project here, what you're going to notice about it is, the way it's actually structured is I have my character and I have a bunch of enemy AI that I've actually programmed to follow my character and try to hit my character when they get close to me. So here's the enemy AI here. There are like 6 of them. Let me go ahead and delete some of them from, so it doesn't get like super crazy. And we're going to see pretty much how this whole system works with behavior trees and so on and so forth. So there's one AI here. When I hit play, my character spawns, and then that AI starts to track and look for me. They start following me. And then when they get close to me, they play an animation and attack me. My health goes down. And then when my health gets to 0, my character basically dies and disappears. And then when I'm no longer there, they stop. Simple, straightforward logic in a sense, but this thing took me like almost 40 hours to work on because I was doing behavior tree, not necessarily AI. AI took a few minutes. And shout out to Asher Einhorn, former Naughty Dog developer. The first video I ever saw on Unreal Engine AI, he was the one who actually taught that particular system. Now, when AI is running, it's not running in a vacuum. It's actually, a process that does task, your resources. So right now, I'm using OBS. So OBS is tasking my resources. So 19% CPU utilization, 42% GPU utilization. And I click play here. You're going to notice that the AI is actually running and the enemy NPC is looking for me, moving around. You see the behavior tree firing on the bottom right. You see that yellow whatever and then the white dotted line. That's pretty much showing then the enemy gets close to me and then starts to hit me. So that's one enemy AI. But here's what Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League does have. It has multiple AIs or AI characters that are constantly walking through the world. So I'll duplicate my AI here so that you guys can kind of see what this will look like. Let's see what our PC performance will look like in this particular, sequence. Because if you notice in the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League trailer, there are like AI characters everywhere. And not only are you going to be running from these AI characters, you're also going to be dealing with, say, other AI constraints that I'm going to describe here in this video as well. Let me see. One more. Let's just do one more. And then now we have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's go ahead and play it. And now I have 6 looking for me. If you've noticed, I have basically added a few more percentage points to my CPU utilization. I wish I could zoom this stuff in for you, but this is the best I can do. I got to go to bed. So I just gotta show you. So you notice they follow me, and now that CPU utilization that we saw like 18% is now at 21, 22%. When you add this to even the AI between your Suicide Squad characters, that is, talking about Captain Boomerang and talking about all of these guys, you start to see that resources are very heavy for a video game that is designed like this. I thought I'd basically break it down and kind of showcase like some of the constraints this game or a game like this would have to go through if it did not go the live service route. It could run it on a PC, don't get me wrong, because you can actually do a bunch of tweaks. You can, modify and kind of, send, different processes to different cores. But PCs work differently from consoles for the most part. And the PS5 and the Series X consoles are not as groundbreaking as they marketed them to be. So when you think about all of this, you think about just the AI, the enemy AI, you think about your player AI, you start to see that these, relationships and the way the behavior trees fire and all of this stuff is actually going to start to task your game. You also have the different aspects of the game, like the way the characters are going to play, their personal skills, their animations, replication, which is another thing that Unreal Engine uses to be able to kind of like relay messages from one player to the other player. Say if, both of you and your buddy are in a team, you're using Harley, they're using Deadshot or whatever it is, and you're like, hey man, you want to do some headshots, and that person is doing headshots. The feedback that the Harley player is going to be getting is replicated over the server in order for both of you to be able to see what the effects are. Perhaps Harley may not see anything. She may hear a sound, or maybe she may just see the enemy NPC basically, get toasted, or their health bar is pretty much nuked from orbit. So these are just a few things that, I think a lot of gamers are not necessarily paying attention to, because for the most part, they jump around and they start talking about, how, that game is doing it over there and this game is doing it over here, but they don't necessarily understand that every game is going to be built differently. It brings me into the conversation for Gotham Knights as well. Gotham Knights is the one game where, because the developers had said, hey, the way our game runs, we cannot necessarily do all of your 60 FPS stuff for the consoles. I told people back then, I said, these consoles are not as groundbreaking as people, in a sense, perceive them to be. They're good, but when you're developing a game, it's a whole different paradigm, because everything's got to be in it somewhere. And they were able to get the game to not be an online fully game, because it seemed like that probably was the proposition that Warner Brothers would have wanted for them to take, but it didn't necessarily happen that way, which is actually pretty good that the game actually does exist and you can play it offline. So all of that stuff is basically running on your machine. You're also running the world streaming, the open world, and all of that craziness. And so, all games will have their own constraints. Now, this game also has a co-op aspect of things as well, too, which is something that, you got to think about, too, with Suicide Squad, but it's doing a lot of its tasks locally, putting that weight, putting all of those processes on your machine. So this is why I think the game is locked to 30 FPS. I know Digital Foundry, they do a good job in telling you about how the floor looks great. No shade at them, but I think they don't do a good service if they don't point out the development constraints that are there. And some of them know how to use Unreal Engine. They know about the engine. I wonder why they don't talk about these things every time that they're actually doing their showcases. It's really interesting to me overall. Maybe they don't see it as important or pertinent, but it is very important when you're actually talking about something. When your coverage of a game is able to affect the entire perception of the game, you must provide as much context as possible. So Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, as much as people may say, oh, the game, they need to remove the online, the online component, you got to be ready to play the game at 30 FPS at that point, if at all you can even play a game like this. I mean, with the Rocksteady development style and all that stuff going over, a server, I don't think it's going to be that easy to run them, with these consoles that we have right now. And that's the thing that nobody really wants to hear. But I strongly believe that it is a thing. Think about their Arkham games. Back in the day, those were in smaller worlds. Those were very heavily controlled. You didn't have the constraints of multiplayer. Even before they implemented their friendly AI, they waited all the way through Arkham Knight to be able to go ahead and do that in a bigger scale. And so that's because they had already learned how to optimize a lot of, their game, learn how to actually make the game work over multiple iterations. So Arkham Knight, that people always tout, was not built in a day. Arkham Knight was built over the course of multiple years of experience and learning. This is why you got a game that, in a sense, is not easily replicated. It took Insomniac and a lot of work and a lot of their experience as well and time in the industry to be able to make their Spider-Man game that could play as fluid as you wanted it to. So this is, in my opinion, something that I think gamers need to start to acknowledge and talk about. And I think Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is in a really interesting spot right now, because everything that they've done for the game is just strange. Now, you may also ask and say, the shooter side of things, why is the game a shooter? Is that, less tasking on the AI? I don't know. I haven't seen their code. I haven't seen the way their behavior trees work. But I think the reason we're not seeing a lot of melee is because those require a lot more animations. Some of you may or may not know animations also cost, some level of resources. I don't know if you guys know. Let me go back and show you guys this behavior tree that I'm showing you, and I'll explain it to you. That way you can kind of like maybe get a sense of what the heck you just saw, because you might be like, well, what in the heck is he even showing? So this behavior tree is very interesting, to say the least. What it does is whenever you start, hold on, what the heck did I just do? Let me play. Whenever you fire up the project, in a sense, what happens is the enemy AI moves over to where I am, and then when they move to where I am, they have to hit me. So if you notice, this is going to change very fast. It changes very fast. You don't even see it when they start attacking me. But when they start attacking me, they basically play this attack, this is a command that pretty much goes ahead and says, hey, man, attack this guy. That attack is an entire set of parameters that is actually, in a sense, covered and hidden between all kinds of layers of fun stuff. And there's an animation that's hidden within it. This animation costs, resources to run and to play. And then if you think about a video game being made like a shooter, you'll realize that shooter, depending on the kind of shooter it is, you're actually going to be saving animation, spend. Let's just call it that. I don't know how you game developers say it, but I just call it in a sense of economy. You're spending less resources if you make an FPS compared to a third-person shooter, because the animations that have to play in a third-person shooter are much more and need to be intricate compared to the animations that need to be played in a first-person shooter. This is why whenever they did the third-person mod in Cyberpunk 2077, a lot of people were like, ooh, those animations are kind of ugly. I don't know if you've seen that before, but if you see it, it just means the developers basically just, crunch down animations and use the least possible level of resources they probably could. So this is why I think Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is also a shooter. It could have been a brawler. It could have been a 4-player brawler, but all of them running all over the place, playing their animations separately, doing all kinds of stuff that they want to do, that probably would have required a lot more resources, like another video game that I know that does something like that and does cause the game to have issues whenever you do it. I know people, this is important stuff that should be known, that we need to figure out. And even on PC, Gotham Knights would do stuff like that. So it's very interesting overall to look at this stuff from a development perspective. And I really like to this is where I look at games from. So many of you come out and, you probably see my opinions are very different from everyone. It's not because I want to defend anybody. It's because I want to know and learn what it is, or the circumstances within which they're making their game. And this is why Rockstar, it takes them years to make one game. They'll sit there on that game for almost a decade because they want to make sure like every single thing can be done. And it can be done. I'm not saying it's impossible. All of what I'm saying is just showing you what the reality is, or what the reality, could look like. And then at the end, I want to just make you know that these are possible to be able to resolve, but they're possible to resolve in a context where the developers are giving the time to do so. Rockstar gets the time to do so. Their publishers and their decision makers understand that time is going to rake in the billions of dollars, where, where publishers like Warner Brothers and so on and so forth are still learning is that you don't need to rush out a product until it's fully, done. And this is what we're talking about. We looked at Gotham Knights the other day. The console version just finally got all of the patches, or as many patches as possible, to get the game to a running state. Even PC had to get multiple patches to get the game. I don't think it's the developer's fault. I think it's basically the publisher that said this game's got to go out, because the publisher can say, okay, you're having these problems, delay it. Right? Even Hogwarts Legacy has got some issues on PC as well. And this is what the publisher is doing. This is a publisher that is known for doing this. Arkham Knight had these problems at launch on PC. So there's a huge, huge level of nuance that must be covered. And I wish I could do it in one video. If the video, for these videos not to, run too long, I risk that. But at the end of the day, at least we have it logged in that these are the development constraints that actually make these games have to take this direction, because I mean, not everybody's going to spend $1,000 on a machine that can run these games. So the developers are actually doing what it is that they can to get the game done. Their what do they call it? Their obligation is to their publisher. That's who gave them the job. That's who's paying for the game. They're basically contractors in a sense to, develop a product for, the publisher. The publisher's it's got the publisher's name behind it for the most part. Publisher owns the studio, so their job is just to do what it is that they can, come up with solutions that they possibly can come up with, and go from there. But anyways, I'll get out of your hair. Maybe we'll talk about this later on. I appreciate you guys' time and audience. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.